Hello everybody and welcome to That's Football. Are Manchester City finished? They've been hit with 100 breaches by the FA today, this morning. Massive news across football. This could lead to points deductions. This could lead to titles having to go back. This could lead to relegation. What a story, and probably not a shock. And some would say, some might say, Liam Gallagher, that it's a long time coming. These breaches relate to between 2009 and 2018. I say, kick him out of the league and give Ole Gunnar Solskjaer his Premier League title, because that's what would have happened. We finished second to these lot. But on a serious note, it is very, very serious. And I think that as we digest it, the big question has to be, are Manchester City finished? And of course, the answer back is going to be from many, well, you can't use the word many and Man City fans, but from Man City fans, they will be saying this is a nonsense, we'll get away with it, Man City will get away with it, you know, Pep will still be our manager, we'll keep winning trophies. But I've got to say, before we dive into what these charges relate to, I've always said this. And of course it comes from a place, and I'll acknowledge it straight away. I'll give Man City a bit of positive news because they're not going to get much else today. Of course, this comes from a place of bitterness and jealousy from everybody who's not a Man City fan. Of course it does. You know, basically, you were founded in 2009. There was a football club called Man City, and then it became what it is now. You've won 8 Premier League titles in just over 10 years. It's been domination of the football scene in the Premier League for the last 14 years. Of course, there's a bitterness and jealousy. You've absolutely dominated it with great football, great manager, and a very, very big, wealthy owner. And you've dominated the scene. But everybody's always had a few questions about this. And the biggest question I've always had is, Man City announced the other month that their revenue was more than Man United. And it's quite close to Real Madrid. And it just makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. Look at Man City's commercial revenue back in 2009. It was something like £22 million. Their commercial revenue this year and the last few years is around 300 million. How do you make commercial revenue go from 20 million to 300 million in 10 years? Manchester United make a lot of money. Liverpool make a lot of money. They are 2 of the biggest clubs in footballing history. They have huge fan bases. They have a huge brand. They have a huge history. There is a huge heritage next to those football clubs. Man City have barely existed a decade as a big football club, and yet they generate revenue. Yet we watch them week in, week out, and they struggle to fill their ground. Where are all these fans? Why would a brand give Man City more money as a sponsor or commercial than they'd give Liverpool or Man United? It's never made any sense to me. Look, if someone in the chat wants to explain it, that's absolutely fine. But this is, look, and I'm not going to delve down into what breaches have happened, but to me, and maybe Newcastle will do it very differently, to me, Man City always felt like, even from 2009, it's always felt like they want to get there quick. They want to get there quick, and they'll get there quick. And I would not be surprised if these breaches were true, because it's always felt with Man City that they've pushed the envelope too far. And I'm not saying that envelope's chucking money at things they shouldn't do. I mean, in the literal sense. The fact is that they've gone from nothing to being a superpower football club, yet they still don't really have the fan base. I'm not having this. I live in England. I don't see many people walking around in Man City tops. You know, I was watching Happy Valley on the BBC last night, and this guy goes in his kid's bedroom and he had Man City bed covers and everything, and it just looked wrong because it's forced. The whole Man City concept is forced. The whole commercialism, the whole we've got loads of fans, the whole everyone loves us. Why does Pep Guardiola constantly talk about, you know, the atmosphere at Man City? Because he knows it is manufactured. There are some really fantastic Man City fans. When they got relegated all those years ago in League Two and they had 33,000 fans, yes, that's proper Man City fans. Where's the other 30,000 come from? Where's this global fan base that's apparently as big as an Arsenal fan base or a Man United or a Real Madrid? It's not there. And I think that, look, whatever's behind these charges, it's long overdue. because it's always felt wrong how their revenue has gone boom, 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 and all the expenditure. It's always felt like, and we keep hearing, oh, our commercial revenues are because we play such fantastic football, but no one cares. No one cares. Like, I work in this scene, journalists work in this scene. It's far more appealing to write an article about Man United or Arsenal or Chelsea or Liverpool than it is about Man City. You know, if I woke up every morning and everywhere I looked on social media was a story about Jack Grealish or a story about Pep Guardiola or Kevin De Bruyne or Kyle Walker, it's not. It's never that. The appeal of Manchester City is manufactured. They're bigger than they were 10 years ago, but their revenues and their expenditure has been like their Real Madrid. Whereas realistically, you can't do that. I've always said about Man City, they'll keep winning Premier League titles and their fan base will grow, but they won't be competing with Man United or Liverpool or Arsenal as a fan base and a commercial club for another 20 years because it takes time to build that. And that's why I think these charges have happened, because they've almost manipulated somehow this way that, and look, many people say that some of their sponsors are owned by people, it's favours, this, that and the other. I don't know. That's not my job to find that out. But as I say, there is a bitterness, there is a jealousy. I'd acknowledge that, because it just felt like, how has this happened? How have they managed to do this in such a short period of time from nothing? I mean, Manchester City, I know a lot about them because they're Man United's big rival, you know, in Manchester. They get the Commonwealth Stadium because of the Commonwealth Games. They get these new owners. They're suddenly buying all these players. They're suddenly winning all these titles. And it's just like, how did it happen? How has it happened? How has it been allowed to happen? And look, maybe we're about to find out. In relation to the charges, this is what I can tell you. So Manchester City have been charged with breaking financial rules by the Premier League. They've been charged with more than 100 breaches of financial rules following a 4-year investigation, and it refers to the period between 2009 and 2018. And it's also accused Manchester City of not cooperating since the investigation started in 2018. Of course, the Commission can impose punishments, including a fine, points deduction and expelling a club. We'll talk about that. What do you think should happen? The information covers club revenue, which includes sponsorship income and operating costs. So look, it's pretty much what I was talking about there. It's this investigation into expenditure and income of Manchester City between 2009 and 2018. And of course, people will say things like, well, what about 2018 to 2023? But Man City are already established by then. What the real interesting bit is how they went from nothing to 2018, and these revenues just went up and up and up and up. And look, I mean, I'm looking at this from a website which is called Statista.com. It might not be completely accurate, but at the end of 2009, Manchester City's match day revenue was 24 million, their broadcasting revenue was 56 million, and their commercial revenue was 21 million. Only 10 years later, their commercial revenue is 284 million, which is, more than 10 times increase. Matchday revenue's doubled, and their broadcasting revenue is obviously gone up as well. But it's ridiculous money and a ridiculous growth for a team that doesn't feel like loads of people support it or like watching it. Simon Stone, who's a BBC journalist, has said, on the basis it's taken the Premier League 4 years to get to this point, do not expect a resolution to this case anytime soon. We know Man City will throw a lot of money at it. Of course, they had the UEFA charge that they, were cleared of. So, they could clear their name completely. They'll never clear their name in the eyes of, in the public opinion, though, will they? Because everybody's always felt that there's been something not quite right about this. But maybe, innocent till proven guilty. You've got to go with that, I suppose. And Simon Stone says Man City have always denied financial wrongdoing. They always said the detail published was incomplete. They will be armed with the very best lawyers, says Simon Stone, looking line by line at every element of Premier League's case. And the charge sheet includes 5 years of allegations that City have not assisted with their inquiry, which is all of that. It will be expensive and it will drag on. It will go through the courts. Pep Guardiola has always said he was assured by his employers that they have not done anything wrong, and that's why he stood by the club. But there are many other voices who vehemently deny that. If City win, legally they will be clear, even if the sniping will continue. Should they lose, all manner of punishments can be handed down. and it's certainly going to be a fascinating outcome. Look, I'm not here to profess that I know every single charge that they've been put forward for. I'm just here as a fan who has been confused on many a show as to how Man City's revenue, commercial revenue, is bigger than that of Man United, or it's up there with the Real Madrid. It makes no sense. These clubs are established years of years and years of, massive heritage, fan bases and reputation, and yet Man City can make the same revenue as them, and yet they're not selling their ground out. No one ever bloody talks about Man City. Why would a sponsor give Man City money more than they'd give Man United or Real Madrid? For what reason? It doesn't make any sense. And look, maybe that's something to do with it. If they have done things wrong, what would you do? Well, if they haven't done things wrong, things will carry on as normal. They'll keep winning Premier League titles and everything will carry on, and that could well happen. If they have done things wrong, then Man City are finished. I would kick them out of the league. I would take the titles off them. And they can start again and do it properly. That's what I would do. It's very harsh, but at the end of the day, these things have happened in other leagues. Juventus have faced problems themselves. If you are a club like an Everton or an Aston Villa or a Southampton, or I'm not just talking about the big clubs here, the whole reputation of the Premier League is in the mud if somebody has dominated it through breaches. Some would use the word cheating, but that's a strong word at this moment in time. So there has to be a punishment. You can't just give them a 10-point deduction. You can't just take a 10-point deduction for next season. What about all the titles that you won because of it? So it's a very, very serious thing. As I say, it feels like it's long overdue. Fair play for the FA actually doing something, because most of these things in life we just assume nothing will ever happen and people will just get away with it. So it'd be very interesting. It's going to drag on and on and on. I actually think it might not have a bad impact on Man City in the short term. If they can generate that siege mentality that everyone's against us, that can be quite inspiring on the pitch. It's not going to stop them spending in the summer either, is it? So in the short term, Man City might actually go on the offensive and still be very, very good. But in the long term, let's just hope the truth comes out. And I would say, without knowing which way this is going to go, I, as a football fan, have always been really confused and curious as to how their revenue is so bloody big when their fan base isn't, their appeal isn't. They just seem to have fast-tracked themselves to a situation. I think that's their mistake. I think that they could have won all the titles anyway. But it feels like they've just sort of manipulated everything to facilitate this fast track to being, one of the, best profit-making clubs in the league. And I just don't see how you do that. The money they've spent on players over the last 10 years, and yet they're churning out 600 million revenue a year. It doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. And, hopefully, at the very least, whatever happens with this, we'll get a clearer indication, because remember, Man City have not cooperated with the FA here. We'll get a clear public record of how Man City generate their revenue and how they've done it, because I'm very interested to see how they've done it. Let's wait and see. But look, all bets are off. Anything's on the table. Man City are very powerful. They've been a very, very good football club. There's no doubt about that. But there's always been these suspicions. They will throw a lot of money at this, and they may well clear their name. But watch this space. It's very serious allegations, and if found guilty, then there needs to be very severe punishments, which could, as I say, range to relegation, points deduction. Would we see titles given back? I'm not a massive fan of that, I'm not a massive fan of that, but because, if you give the title to Liverpool last year, or you give it to United under Ollie, did you really win it? It's a very false feeling, isn't it? But look, that's very speculative. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Get your comments in below. Thanks everyone for watching. Smash the like and subscribe, and I'll speak to you on the next one.